Krishna?
Not quite. Acting is there, but actually, what was Krishna recommending to Arjuna first of all? Perhaps someone could take a look at text 48 and read the translation for us, chapter 2.
Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga.
Yeah, so what's the main theme of this section? Text 48, chapter 2, all the way up to text 9 of chapter 3.
Prescribed duties?
In what way?
Performing prescribed duties, but not performing them with an attitude that you want to enjoy the fruits of your duties.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so in simple terms, with detachment from the result.
Yeah.
Yeah, with detachment from the result. That's called Sangam Tyaktva. In the verse, if you look at the Sanskrit, someone like to read the Sanskrit for us, 248.
Text 48, 48. Sorry, go on. Go on, Prabhu.
Thank you. Yogasta kuru karmani sangatyaktva dhananjaya siddhi asidhyo sama bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate.
Yeah, so you see the second line. It's a key phrase there. I mean, the Sanskrit, if we remember even one phrase, it's like a trigger to a whole chapter of philosophical conclusion. Just one phrase. And that's why the Sanskrit is recommended, Prabhupada recommending that we memorize the Sanskrit, and that's why he's included the Sanskrit verses in his commentary, which is in itself unique. If you compare other Indian philosophical writers who are writing in English and publishing in the West, none of them included Sanskrit to the detail that Prabhupada has done. And Prabhupada personally led his disciples in memorizing verses at the time of class, in the Srimad Bhagavatam class, so word by word. And then that's why we do the word by word, actually, because Prabhupada originally would do that, and they'd do word, they'd memorize a word, they'd memorize a line, and he'd do it sitting with them in the class in the morning. So they would memorize verses. So Prabhupada wanted it. So why? Not just because, it's like, it's a punishment. No, because it has powerful effect on your consciousness. Has powerful effect on your consciousness in terms of your understanding, philosophical understanding, philosophical understanding. Maya Ramugna Jive Nahishwato Krishna Gyan Jive Kripa Koilo Jive Ved Puran. Maya Ramugna Jivo. On our own, Maya Mugda, in illusion, Nahiswato Krishna Gyan. We can't get knowledge of Krishna. Jiver Kripa Koilo. Out of mercy for the Jivas, Krishna Ved Puran. The Lord expanded in the form of the Vedas and the Puranas to make it, to give us a way of actually through the language, understanding him. Krishna Tattva, realizing him through the science, Bhagavad Tattva. Jai Krishna Tattva Beta Hoy. Jai Krishna Tattva Veta Hoy. Shai Guru Hoy. Jai Krishna Tattva Veta. It's the science, needs to be understood, so that the language helps us understand the philosophical concepts. So he says there's Sangam Chaktva. You have to Chaktva, you have to give up. Chaktva is Tyag, means abandon. Sangam, attachment to it. It's just in the two words that the whole chapter, the whole theme of the chapter, the philosophical conclusion, in two words: Sangam Chaktva, give up attachment, but do the duty. Jogashta Kuru Karmani, do your karma. Sangam Chaktva, without attachment. You just do it because it's your duty. So that's the theme. And then what were the reasons? What were some of the reasons he gave Arjuna? And in the purports, it's also further elaborated on with examples. First of all, what are some of the examples of showing that this Kuru Karmani Sangam Chaktva, to work, and And that work, Krishna's recommending that in comparison to what? Now, Krishna's recommending that in comparison to what?
Is it renouncing work?
Yes. Yeah, meaning sannyas, meaning just you abandon everything, you become a beggar, you wear a saffron cloth, you renounce the world. Now that's called sannyas yoga. But Krishna is recommending karma yoga. All right, karma yoga. Are we clear? Any question? Yeah, so give me some of there's examples given. That Krishna has given, and we've discussed in last week, examples to support this. What are the examples? That means people. What are the examples? Or who are the examples? Who are the examples that show that better than right renunciation is to engage the senses with detachment?
Ambarish Maharaj.
Ambarish Maharaj. Other examples?
Haridas Thakur.
Haridas Thakur in comparison to
Lord Shiva.
Lord Shiva. Now we have to remember the examples, and then we can support the argument. Now, what are the analogies? There's analogies given.
Tortoise.
Tortoise. Okay. It's not that you cut off the senses. You don't cut off the limbs. You use them appropriately and withdraw them. What are the other analogies?
The ocean that is constantly filled with rivers.
Okay, that's an ocean. Yeah, that's a and we didn't discuss that, but that's there in the second chapter. Yeah, we give you points to that. What are some of the other analogies? The ones that we actually discussed. What about the boat? What was the boat doing, and what was that analogy?
Crossing the ocean of material existence, but it will get shrunk down to a calf's footprint.
That's an analogy. That's in the purport somewhere there. But the one about the boat, the anchor.
Oh, my bad.
There's a boat, there's an anchor, there's the wind. The boat, anchor, and the wind. What do they prove?
That just one of your senses can be carried away if you aren't constantly on guard.
Good. Okay, that's the application. But tell me in terms of the analogy. What's the wind? What's the anchor? I mean, you have to give evidence that you can use this analogy to make the argument before we can move on. What's the argument? What's the philosophical issue here? Philosophical issue is that detached work or regulated work without attachment to the result is better than giving up work. So how does the boat on the water prove that? Karma yoga is better than karma sannyas. How does the boat on the water prove that? Skipping that one, are we, gentlemen?
Well, it says on the purport here that all senses engage in Krishna consciousness. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, Prabhu.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the answer is that the boat will get swept away. So the senses have to be engaged. If they're just restrained, which is what happens in the sannyas, if they're just restrained, then at any moment they could become attracted, they could become disturbed. Just like a boat was not anchored, at any moment the wind can just blow it away. So when the senses are engaged with detachment, then there's no chance that they're going to become attracted to anything else. Because another example is the higher taste. So this is the whole theme here. Now, it appears that Arjuna still doesn't have it, even in the beginning of the third chapter. It appears that he still hasn't quite understood. So he asks in the first couple of verses, he says, he's still confused. He's still saying, Arjuna's still thinking that if I'm going to fight, then that's some sort of less material. And so, you're telling me to give up. You're telling me about that I'm not the body, but now you're telling me to fight. So just say one thing. Maybe we can read the translations to text 1 and 2.
Chapter 2?
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
Oops. I thought you were seeing that. That's my mistake. We weren't sharing the screen. I'm sorry about that. I wouldn't have spoken in that way if I didn't realize that you cannot see what I'm showing. So that's what I'm showing. And I'll just say it again. That Arjuna is still thinking that, because Krishna spoke about transcendence, as we heard in our review, he did mention the 3 modes, and he mentioned that Nistraguna Bhava Arjuna. Nistraguna bhava, become nistraguna, beyond the modes. He says that. That's in text 45. Nistraguna bhava. Triguna bishaya beda, nistraguna bhavajuna. That's text 45, chapter 2. Triguna bishaya beda. Triguna bishaya. The Vedas are dealing with the three modes. Nistraguna bhava, in the modes, become above the modes. So he says that about the material world and the transcendental platform, and then he says fight. You know, he's saying that you should Guru Karmani many times mentioned. So Arjuna is still confused. So he says Arjuna thinks he's saying two things, and now he says to say one thing. Now, can you please read the translations to text 1 and 2?
Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want me to engage in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruit of work? My intelligence
Go on.
My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me.
Yeah. Okay, so what does he say in the second, at the end of the first, is like intelligence and then work. What are the two things he says there? End of this first verse. Last line in the first verse.
Intelligence is better than fruitive work.
Yeah, okay, so that's jnana and karma. That's jnana and karma. So we should understand what those things are, because these are the chapters here. We're dealing with chapters on these topics. Chapter 4 is jnana yoga. Chapter 3 is karma yoga. So we need to know what we're talking about. So jnana yoga is giving up everything. And Krishna is not recommending Arjuna do that. And for so many reasons. So we're carrying on. Even again, in verses 3 to 9. Let's read the translations, verses 3 to 9. It'll be like a review for us. Someone read, please.
Text 3. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical and philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. Text 4. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. Text 5. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. Text 6. One who has restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. Text 7. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. Text 8. Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. Text 9. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu, who has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage.
Okay, so these are all the same argument, that it's better to perform your prescribed duty with detachment than to give up abandon your duty. And it's specifically in relation to Arjuna on the battlefield, but it's in general for all humanity. Okay, now the next few verses, they talk about worship of the demigods, actually. They talk about worshiping the demigods and how that gradually purifies one. And basically the verses are mentioning that that you have to worship demigods because you have to pay you have to do the sacrifice. You have to do sacrifice. I mean, everybody. That's the principle. We did the Isha Upanishad, right? Isha Vashamidam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatam Jagad. There is a law. Isha Avashamidam Sarvam. There's a controller in the universe. You remember that first verse, Isha Upanishad? We studied Isha Upanishad, is it not? Yeah, so the first verse, Isha Vashamidam Sarvam. The Isha Idam Sarvam, the whole thing is pervaded by a controller. So, there's laws. People may not be very cool, but that's our philosophy. There's laws, universal laws, because there's a Isha, there's a controller. So what does it mean? It means he controls. So you've got to know what you're expected to do. It's not that you can do anything, and it's all the same. There's right and wrong, and particularly for attaining perfection. So you have to, part of the laws is that you have to pay, you have to do sacrifice for all of the the consummation that you're doing, all the consuming. The water is coming, the air is coming, the water. I mean, that's energy, the sun. So who's paying for the bill? And the water has fertilized the land, and the water for drinking, and then the land, and then the growth, the seeds, and the vegetables, and the sun is producing the crops. So it's energy that's being provided. So the deal is that at human level, you have to perform sacrifice. Otherwise, you accrue sin. And worship of the demigods is compulsory. That's the Vedic thing. That's why the Brahmins, this movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's a revolt. It's a social revolt. Prabhupada described it as civil disobedience movement. Because it's against, in many ways, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, it met with resistance, even in Navadip here, by the local Brahmins, because it dismisses the necessity of having to have priests for worshiping the demigods, which everyone was obliged to do. At least they didn't worship the demigods, but in Hinduism in the modern times, basically you had to employ the priests. And that's what they kept them in employment. But in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, if you chant Hare Krishna, that's the Sankirtan Yajna. That's the Sankirtan Yajna. So it pays all your debts to the demigods. But even more so, it also gives you prema. Kali Juga Jugadama, Kali Juga Nam Rupe Krishna Avatar, Nam Hoite Hoi Shavra Jagadanishta. Krishna Avatar, the holy name, he's appearing. So you get mukti, you get the love of Godhead, just by chanting the holy name, as well as paying all your debts to the demigods. So what a package we get in Krishna consciousness movement. Okay, so you had some now we were going to discuss, and you had some questions also. So one of you had brought up a question in the beginning, so we're going to give you some time to do this now. This is what do we mean by Varnashram Dharma? Someone can inform us?
The four type of ashrams: Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas, and Acharya.
Yeah. Okay. And the
Varna? Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra.
Yeah, and what's Arjuna's Varna?
He's a Kshatriya.
Yeah. So Krishna's actually, these are the arguments that you have to fight because it's your Varnashram Dharma. It's your Varna Dharma. So he's using these arguments. And this particular chapter, particularly, it's about that. You have to do your Varna with detachment. That's what Karma Yoga is. And that's what this chapter is describing. So the topic comes up in the purports and in the verses. And in this case, we'll be discussing the Varnashram Dharma in general, not just for Arjuna, but for everybody in humanity. That's your question. And this, what are the qualifications for beginning? What are the qualifications for beginning? So these are the specific verses to take a look at. 231 you can look at, but they're all in this chapter, which we're covering this evening. So let's take 10 minutes. It's 8:02 in my, sorry, we'll give you to, I think you'll need 20 minutes. No, that's too long. We'll give you 12 minutes. Let's see how you're going at, just read the verses, read those purports, and you'll answer the questions. So I think you need 15 minutes. We'll give you to 8:20 Indian time. 8:20 Indian time. So you got 17 minutes. Do that individually. Any question before we begin? So answer both questions. You've got 17 minutes. And we'll hear what you come up with. Look in those verses. Gentlemen, let's reconvene. Let's reconvene. Let's hear. Let's roll. 1 minute. 1 minute. Sorry. Under what circumstances is following Varnashram Dharma necessary?
I said each person has a specific duty. Each person has a swadharma, a specific duty in the material world, and after liberation, it becomes spiritualized.
Yeah.
So varnashram is a stepping stone to elevate one to a higher status of life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everyone is forced to act,
Yeah.
which is
Good.
true in material and spiritual life.
Yeah. That's perfect, Blake. Sorry, yes, is it Blake or Tabi Krishna? Is it Blake?
It's Blake.
Anyway, Blake, yeah, you got it. You know, the stepping stones, the analogies there. It's an analogy, it's a metaphor, stepping stones. Some other comments from other students who has to follow Varnashram Dharma?
Prabhuji, I was reading this from text 35 towards the end, where, however, when one transcends the modes of material nature and is fully situated in Krishna consciousness, he can perform anything, everything under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. In that complete stage of Krishna consciousness, the Kshatriya may act as a Brahmin or Brahmin may act as a Kshatriya.
Yeah.
In the transcendental stage of the distinction of material world do not apply. And then it gives example of Vishwamitra, who was originally a Kshatriya, but later on he acted as a Brahmin.
Yeah.
So
what's your answer to the question, Nitai, that who has to perform Varnashram Dharma?
So initially when I was reading 231, like in terms of about Arjuna, because he was a Kshatriya, that means Kshatriya means to hurt, and he's there to give protection. And also, if he is challenged by another envious king, then even if he dies in the battlefield, he will achieve heavenly planets, just as a Brahmin would be doing sacrificial sacrifices. He would be also eligible to the heavenly planets. So they are following their dharmas.
Yeah, this is Varnashram Dharma. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, you've got it. Now, Krishna's recommending that in this stage. He's recommending that as compared to renunciation. But he's recommending it, you do it in such a way that without attachment to the result, rather than doing it with attachment, because you can do it with attachment to go to the heavenly planets. You can become a king, you can become a hero. But he's not recommending that. He's not recommending that, although he does mention it in second chapter in a few verses. That thing about you'll attain the heavenly planets. But then he says that, that don't do it with the desire to go to the heavenly planets, but you will. If a Kshatriya is a hero, and he'll go to the heavenly planets. So, he says that, but then he says, don't do it to achieve that. He says, do it just because it's your duty. And so that's called karma yoga. And that's better than not doing it. So that's where we are at the moment. Then who's eligible to perform? Yeah, so basically, Varnashram Dharma, anyone, everyone. The answer, Blake, is Nitai, is that anyone who's not transcendental. As Prabhupada's making the point, if you're transcendental to the modes, then you can do anything. And it's all transcendental. That's Krishna conscious. That's the eternal. It's not a stepping stone because you're eternally Krishna's servant. So immediately you're elevated to that platform. You're working on the eternal platform. That's called transcendental devotional service. Prabhupada calls it the eternal nature of the soul. So so then there's automatically no reaction to spiritual, but everybody else has to perform the Varnashram Dharma. Otherwise, that's sinful. If a Kshatriya, if he flees from the battlefield, it's a sin. It's like in Christian, the theology of Christianity, the sin is very simplified. But in the Vedic approach, it's different sins for different people. And therefore, there's different rules. Like the Kshatriyas are meant to fight. They're meant to be heroes. They're meant to go and kill in a righteous way. But everything they mixed up is mixed up of modern society is a mix up of Christianity and communism. Like it's a mix up. We mixed up modern theory. Be good, be loving, but everything's equal. It's all one. There's no rules. But actually, it's such a good system, the Vedic system. The different, according to your character, you have different rules and there's different sins. That's like so much more developed social and moral system. According to your character, there's different rules for you and there's different sins. Even that in itself is much more acceptable than the idea of like sin and in Christian theology, which was like as a fear thing. This is so much more scientific and so much more acceptable because it's all based on your duty. A Kshatriya has to be a hero, and if he could do that, he can kill people. That's it. Then kill it, then become a Kshatriya and stand up and fight the other Kshatriyas. It's such a much more well-designed social system. Put them together and let the real Kshatriya, let them rule. The one who's the one is the hero, then, and people will be afraid by nature. It's like Kshatriya has to fight, and that's his dharma. Okay, and the Brahmin has to do tapasya, get up early, control the mind, not be chasing after money, and that's their tapasya. And if they neglect that, it's sinful. So it's pretty, and then if you're not either on that level of like working as a Brahmin, which is needed in society, or as a hero, then you have to work under such a person. And then you'll get the same, benefits. That's the social system, the Varnashram Dharma. And it's pretty, it's fundamental to Vedic philosophy. Vedic philosophy is an environment of where Varnashram Dharma is kind of like considered the standard of social environment. So any questions on that? Then what about what's the qualification for beginning Krishna consciousness? With some evidence. So thanks, and I appreciate you all providing that specific evidence from the text, the purports, in answer to the previous question. It made the exercise so educational. So similarly, what have you come up with in terms of what are the qualifications for beginning Krishna consciousness?
Prabhu, you had, I think, asked this question also in your homework, and I just gave about 7 bullet points. Can I just read them?
Nitai Prasad, your enthusiasm for the topic is very encouraging.
Thank you, Prabhu. So I gave 7 bullet points. I got it. Actually, I wrote, a Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not conducive to development of Krishna consciousness. Number 2, not to engage in such activities for the satisfaction of his sense gratification. Number 3, engage for the satisfaction of Krishna. Number 4, one must show how to act and engage the results of actions for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Number 5, one should show how the results of all work can be dictated to the service of Krishna by setting an example. And number 6, for conditional souls, by following Vedic rituals, one can be gradually elevated to Krishna consciousness. And Krishna conscious person should not disturb others in their activities of understanding.
Yeah, Nitai, this is how I would describe an encyclopedic summary of this whole chapter. So many important points you touched upon. Do others have some comment specifically on this question? What's the qualification for beginning Krishna consciousness?
Could we say taking?
Krishna.
Oh,
Blake.
yeah. Could you say taking Krishna to take up Krishna consciousness? The only qualification is to start, because the process itself will purify you.
Blake, yes. I appreciate your brevity.
And I think it also said in the purport that without Krishna consciousness, even perfect varnashram is a failure.
Yes. You're hitting a lot of goals here in your comments, Blake. Now let's look at the screen again. And we can look at these. Look at some of the things Prabhupada says here. Look at these. Such a paragraph. Someone read for us, please.
A slightly developed Krishna conscious person may directly be engaged in the service of the Lord without waiting for other Vedic formulas. For this fortunate man, there is no need to follow the Vedic rituals, because by direct Krishna consciousness, one can have all the results one would otherwise derive from following one's prescribed duties.
Because we've heard that, yeah, you perform prescribed duties, even in the beginning with the desire to enjoy the result. But if you perform prescribed duties, you're going to gradually come elevated to this platform, where you come to Krishna consciousness. The first level is you do, the previous level is you just do anything that's sin. The first level is you do your prescribed duty, and even with the desire to get the prosperity. They'll still elevate you gradually. And then you'll come to the platform of Karma Yoga. You carry on with the prescribed duty, but you do it because it's your duty to show example for others. And it's better to have the senses engaged. And then eventually you come to Krishna consciousness. Now, if you're already at Krishna consciousness, a fortunate person, fortunate man, because of a Vaishnava's kripa, he came to Krishna consciousness. So then you get all the results of that automatically, so then you don't have to do. So the question we'll look at in shortly is then why do it? And we'll see why Vaishnava does do it. We'll discuss that shortly. Yeah, okay, so this is what we mean by Varnashram Dharma. It's not actually a caste system, but it's actually Krishna consciousness. And then it includes all the benefits of Varnashram Dharma. Please read.
Now you cannot again introduce this system of Varnashram. It is not possible. But if one takes to Krishna consciousness, automatically he becomes immediately a Brahmin and above the Brahmin. A Vaishnav is above the Brahmin.
Yeah, so theoretically, we don't need to worry about it because we're Vaishnav, so then we try and become pure Vaishnavs, and that's it. And we spread Vaishnav philosophy, and that's it with holy name. So that's our main ethic. But still, as best as we can, we follow this because it's good for humanity and it's good for us also. But already we have the result of it. Yeah. So these are the topics that have been discussed so far. Okay, Krishna talked about jnana, not the body, and that's fundamental knowledge in Bhagavad Gita, and that's why Prabhupada, when you see Prabhupada quoting from Bhagavad Gita, most of the time he refers to these verses, that you're not the body. And that's why Bhagavad Gita is so essential. But everything else in it also important for us. But those verses particularly important. And now, as we mentioned, yeah, even you perform your prescribed duty, even with the desire to go to heaven, Krishna recommends that briefly for 5 verses in chapter 2. And that is if you really want to enjoy, because Arjuna brought up the argument of enjoyment. And then Arjuna said there were sinful reactions, and Krishna said, no, if you do your karma, your varna without attachment, then there's no reaction. If you do it with attachment, you only get pious reaction. If you do it without attachment, you get no reaction. That's called karma yoga or buddhi yoga. And he recommends that. Now, there was another argument that Arjuna had. Can you remember what that was? What was Arjuna's fourth argument for withdrawing from the fight?
The females become corrupted.
Yeah, the dynasty traditions would be destroyed. Dynasty traditions would be destroyed because the elders, would all be killed. So the dynasty, the family culture would be destroyed. Women become polluted. That Strishu Dushtashu Dharmeshu Vajayate Vanashankara, there'll be unwanted progeny. Adama Abhabivat Krishna Prudashanti Kulastriya, the women will become polluted. So all of these arguments Arjuna is mentioning. So now he says, therefore, he's saying that I shouldn't kill them. I shouldn't kill them. So how does Krishna respond to this argument? He responds to it in this section of the 3rd chapter. Krishna says that, from verses 18 to 26, he turns around this argument. Arjuna is saying that if I kill the elders, then all of the traditions will be lost. And Krishna completely turns that around in this way. We can have a look at some of the logic of the presentation that Bhagavan Sri Krishna makes in this connection. Someone like to read for us? This is text number 19.
A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work.
Now, that was one of your homework questions. Okay. So who doesn't have to perform Varnasrama Dharma? Who doesn't have to perform any duty? And it's a self-realized person. Okay, and why is that? Is that just elite fringe benefit of elitist group fringe benefit? Why doesn't he have to perform any work? Any karma or Varnasrama Dharma, a self-realized person?
Because by his spiritual practices, he's purified himself to the point where he just wants to do everything for Krishna, and that's like the same as what he would be doing if he was in the spiritual world.
Yeah, Blake, that's it. Yeah, I like it. It's like bang on top of the head of the nail there, Blake. Bang. That's bhakti. Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't in terms of say this, in terms of explaining the science of it, that because a self-realized person has no desire, so he doesn't need to do any purification, and he has the modes are not affecting him, so he doesn't need to do any prescribed duty performed to purify him of the influence of the modes. So he can do anything or nothing.
Sorry. Sometimes you hear devotees say in classes that there's like 3 people, and then I can't remember the exact way the story goes, but Like a sinful person, they say you should live as long as possible. And then a really
Yeah.
pious person, they say you should die as soon as possible. But a really
Yeah.
saintly person, they say die or live, it doesn't matter because you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Jiva Vamaro Sadhu. Muni Putra Gamajiva. Muni Putra Gamajiva. Long life for the Muni, for the son of the Rishi. Muni Putra Gamajiva. Rajaputra Gamajiva, for the prince, die now. Because the longer you live, the more sin you're occurring. Jiva Vamaro Sadhu. Live or die, Sadhu. Ma Jiva. Don't die, don't live, for butcher. Yeah, don't die, don't live. Because dying is going to be big trouble for you. Living's big trouble. But for the sadhu jiva vamaru, live or die. Yeah, so now then the question is, okay, so then he doesn't need to perform any work, any prescribed duty, a self-realized person. You know, however, he could do it. There'd be no harm for him in doing it. There'd be no harm for him in doing it. So in order to show the example for people, he can do it. So that's partly why in Krishna consciousness, you know, we have the grihastas, we have sannyasis, to show society how to be organized. But actually, we could just hang out and chant Hare Krishna in any way. But there's this whole system, you know, because actually that's recommended by Krishna himself, that Chaturvarna Maya Shishtam. Okay, so Arjuna, he doesn't require to do it. Or in this case, he does, actually, Krishna's saying, because he's so much in the, you know, he's a Kshatriya. But by the end of the Bhagavad Gita, he doesn't do that. He just does it to please Krishna. By the end of hearing, so having associated so much with Krishna, hearing from him in this way, in such a deep philosophical discussion. So then Krishna gives himself as an example. Yeah. This is a famous verse. Perhaps someone would like to chant.
Na me parthashti kartavayam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavayam varta eva cha karmani.
Yeah, this is often quoted. This is yeah, carry on.
O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties.
Yeah, this is often quoted. It's called Bhagavad Tattva. It's Bhagavad Tattva. It's science of God. Name partastikardavram trishu lokeshu kinchana. Nothing. I have no obligation. Name partastikardavya. I have no obligation. Trishu lokeshu kinchana, in all the three worlds. I don't have to do anything. That's the prerogative of God. Everyone else has to do things. But still I'm doing prescribed duties. It'll be described in these purports you heard. What are some of the things that are described about Krishna doing his prescribed duties? What are some of the examples given in these purports?
He says, if I ever fail to carefully perform prescribed duties, certainly all people will follow my path.
Yeah. What else?
Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties.
Yeah.
Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work.
Yeah. What are some of the things that, my question was, what are some of the things that Krishna is doing that indicates his karma, his fine karma?
Prabhuji, in text 23, it is understood that Lord Krishna was performing all the religious duties at home and out of home as required of a householder.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Grihastha Dharma. He was doing it. He doesn't have to do that, but he was doing that. What else was he doing?
As a Vaishya, he was also taking care of cows.
Okay, yeah, that's when he was in Vrindavan, and now he's as Dwarkadish, the king of Dwarka, the speaker of Bhagavad Gita. He's the prince. He's Krishna as the king of, as Vasudev Dwarkadish, the king of Dwarka, is the speaker of Bhagavad Gita. So that lifestyle is being reflected when he's speaking. Varteva Chakamani. So what are some of the aspects of that lifestyle? It's the king of Dwarka, Dwarkadish, Dwarkanath, Dwarkaraj, and the Dwarkavashis is at the Dwarka. He's worshipped. Have you been to Dwarka? Someone's been to Dwarka? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes?
Prabhu.
You've been to Dwarka? Yeah, you've been there. Went out on the boat, out to the little island out there. Gujarat, at the end of this stormy sea up there. Dwarka, yeah. So Krishna's palace was there, Krishna's kingdom was there. So he was king. He was a Kshatriya, he would accept the challenge. He would accept the challenge. He fought like in combat with many other Kshatriya kings, defeated them. Many occasions. Yeah, please read.
Although such rules and regulations are for the conditioned souls and not Lord Krishna, because he descended to establish the principles of religion, he followed the prescribed rules. Otherwise, common man would follow in his footsteps, because he is the greatest authority.
Yeah, and so Arjuna similarly, Arjuna is called the, otherwise we'll produce the, well, maybe I'll come back to that. Arjuna will come, this one, where does it say? 321, what happened to 321? 321. Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to it. Yeah, so this is the Krishna is saying this, that because Arjuna he's our leader. Krishna is saying that people will be influenced by your example, just like in my case. He says that Nakuryam karma. If I don't do my prescribed duty, Nakuryam karma, the Sankarasha, Chakarta Sham, there'll be production of the unwanted progeny. Now that's Arjuna's argument of the destruction of the dynasty, the pollution of the woman, there'll be unwanted progeny. So here Krishna is saying that he's turning the argument around. If you abandon your karma, you'll set an example, people will stop doing their karma, women will become polluted. So the principle being here, the example, this is text 21, that the Shrestha, because you're a leader, Arjuna's influence, Arjuna's a great hero. You could say the Kshatriya is a very influential person. He's a role model in society, more than just an ordinary person. He's a role model. So, what responsibility he has. People will do everything that he does, just because he does it. Sayat pramanam. That's the evidence. Why am I doing it? Well, the evidence is because that the acharati shrestha, the behavior of a great person. The behavior of a great person. I mean, if you see, and ISKCON's a spiritual leader, that's why sannyasis, they're socially so regulated, because it's not to be imitated, but they have to follow. I mean, if the whole society becomes confused, if sannyasis stop following the practice of the sannyasi, the dress and the behavior, the whole society becomes completely confused. By seeing their example, everybody, everyone follows there. I should be a good grihasta. And if no one's following, then I don't have to do my duties. If seniors are not following their prescribed duties, I don't have to do my prescribed duties. As simple as that. So therefore, the more senior you are, the more influential you are, the more responsibility you have on the social fabric, the social structure. Acharya, it means that your behavior teaches, your example teaches. To put it bluntly, I learned Hatha joke many years. Do Hatha joke. I have many teachers. The teacher, I call him Acharya Ji. Acharya Ji. They like that because actually they do it themselves. That's all. It's just a compliment because it's not that they just sit there and tell you to do it. They do it themselves. They do the asana. So it's Acharya Ji. By practice, he teaches. And so they do that title. So, but in Vaishnav Siddhanta, you have to practice. You have to behave. Shankapurvaganam Agyan Adibi Kalavashani Krito Nidrahara Vahara Kaji Vijito Adanta Dino, the behavior of the Goswamis. That's what Vaishnava, that's the Vaishnava. By their behavior, they teach the Goswamis the way they behaved. Sankapurvaganam regulated, they chanted on Japamala. They went and sat and chanted, and people, it's not that I'm in love with Krishna, but they actually completed Japa. Sankapurvaganam means they completed Sankhya. They calculated the number of malas they were chanting. Sankapurvaganam, Gan, the singing, Nati B, falling down, paying obeisances. You see these things. People see the way that's how Vaishnava behaves. How ideal Vaishnava, Nati B, they pay obeisances on the ground, they dance, they chant the holy name. Kalavashani Krito, this is how they utilized their time. Kalavashani Krito, this is how they did in their time. They bowed down, they danced, they chanted the holy name. That's the activity of Vaishnava. Nidra ahara harika vijito. Nidra aha, that's in nidra, means sleeping, aha, eating. Recreation, viharika divijito, they reduced, they controlled, they actually conquered. Nidra aha viharika divijito, they conquered completely. Sleeping, eating, and enjoyment activities. Everything was completely engaged in those activities of hearing, bowing down, and chanting and dancing. And at the same time, they're excessively humble. This is the qualification of a Vaishnava. This is how Vaishnava, his behavior, he's humble. Atantadino means excessively humble. Excessively, the Goswamis, excessively humble. When they introduce themselves to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sanatana and Rupa Goswami, Nicha Jati, we're low-born, Nicha Shongi, we're associated with low-class people, Potit Odhom, sinful, fallen, Kubishai Kupe, the Kubishai Kupe, the deep well of Kubishai, of luxurious incense enjoyment, Kupe, and falling into that well, Goina Nujanam, I've wasted my life. That's how he introduced himself. I'm low-born, I've associated with low-class people, I'm sinful, I'm the lowest, and I've wasted my life in the well of luxurious sense enjoyment. That's how he introduced himself. And he actually, that's how they believed. That's not that they just say that. Like in ISKCON, we say, oh, I'm so fallen, but we don't actually believe it. We think we're pretty advanced, but they actually believed. They were sinful, low-class. I think I quoted in a previous session that Haridash Thakur Arup Shanaton Jagannath Mandir Najan Tinjon. Haridash Thakur Arup Shanaton Jagannath Mandir Najan Tinjon. They didn't go into the temple of Jagannath. Haridash Thakur and Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, even though they were such learned scholars and profoundly learned in so many languages and such, philosophers of the Chaitanya Goswami Siddhanta. He ordered them to write the books. Kobe Bhakti Shastra Kore Alikon Chaitanya Kota Shune Kobe Chaitanya Chinton in Vrindavan. Kobe Bhakti Shastra Kore Alikon. They would write the Bhakti Shastras He engaged them, he ordered them to go and write, to compile the literary works to substantiate his teachings. Kobe Bhakti Rasa Shastra Koraya Likon. They wrote it in Vrindavan. Kobe Chaitanya Kota Shune, Kobe Chaitanya Chinton. And they absorbed themselves in the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and discussing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Vrindavan, the Goswamis. So their behavior, these are observable things. That has an impact. When people see you behaving like that, they see you living like that, it has a big effect on them. This is a Vaishnava association of a person who's deeply absorbed in these activities. That's what you come to the holy dham for. Labhamatra Sadhu Shanga Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Labhamatra Sadhu Shanga. When you associate with a person and see their behavior is so committed to the spiritual goal of life by practicing Bhagavad Bhakti. Sadhu Shanga Labhamatra, even a brief association with such a sadhu, Sarva Siddhi Hoy, can inspire you for attaining the highest perfection. Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Actually, sometimes people ask me why I came to Krishna consciousness. I say because I met devotees, and I've never met people like that. They were disciples of Prabhupada in Melbourne. It's like 10 or 15 of them in Melbourne. Prabhupada visited Melbourne. He lived there. Initiated devotees, had a temple there. When I met these devotees, Prabhupada's disciples, I'd never met people that were so committed to an ideal and living it in such a profoundly committed way. That attracted me, their commitment, their character. These people are so committed that, the way they eat, the way they speak, the way they behave every day, it's a completely revolutionary lifestyle because they're so committed. And that it was their behavior. Even before we understand the philosophy, these people are so committed. Never met people like that who are so committed to values and following it in their life. So your behavior, that has more impact on people than what you speak. Let's read Prabhupada's comment in the purport. Please read.
The king, of the executive head of state, the father and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a general responsibility to their dependents.
Yeah, so there's the principle here. So Arjuna, that's not just you. You split from this battlefield, the whole thing's going to collapse. So better you just fight without attachment to the result. Any questions on what's rolling on here? So in this way, Krishna's defeated all of Arjuna's arguments that he posed in the first chapter. Any question on that? Yeah. Any questions at this stage? Okay, we can roll into a bit of an overview of the chapter. We can roll into an overview of the chapter here. Can I give you a step back and see what's going on? That also may produce questions. Okay, so you got this thing here that for a guy who's completely self-realized, he doesn't need to perform Varnashram Dharma, he doesn't need to perform karma. But that person does karma yoga because, it'll influence the rest of the society to do their karma, which they do need to do. Even I do that. Krishna says, even I do that. And like I say, as that was also mentioned in our review, that the people that should do it, if they see you not doing it, they're going to be disturbed. So better you do it, even though you may not need to. Any question? Okay, the end of the chapter then, the topic of lust. In this case, let's take a look at this text. Let's read this 30, what will it be? It'll be 35, something like that. Yeah, 36. 36. What have I got here on the slides? Let's see what we got. Yeah, here we go. Someone like to chat?
Arjuna Vacha, Attha kena prayuktoyam papam chariti purushaha anichana api varsanya balat eva niyojitaha. O descendant of Vishnu, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force?
Yeah, there's a few key words here in this verse, gentlemen. A few key words. Papam charati purusham anichcham. Papam charati purusham anichcham. Means without me desiring, anichcham, without ichcha is does desire. Ichcha is such a common word in these books. 12th chapter, Abhyasa Yoga Juktena Mam Ichchaptam Dhananjay. Abhyasa Yoga Juktena, by practicing. Abhyas Yoga, you practice bhakti. Abhyas Yoga Juktena. Practicing bhakti yoga. Mam Ichchaptam Dhananjaya. You get a desire for me. Mam Ichchaptam. Ichcha. Desire, Ichcha, Dvesha, Ichcha, desire. So anicham, without desiring it, papam charity, you sin. You sin. You know, why is it? It's like a big question. Why do you sin? We know it's not good, but like we're impelled to. We're impelled to do it. So what's Krishna's answer? Yeah, you can look at these verses, right? Yeah. Let's take a verse each. We've got, look at the Sanskrit words. Why don't you take 10 minutes on this, gentlemen? This is the task. I'll give you a verse, one of the verses. Look at the principle, read the verse, find out what's the principle, what's Krishna saying, summarize, get his message summarized. Look at the Sanskrit words that are linking to that are encapsulating that. So make a note of it. So here's the verses. Just do it. We'll do it individually. You can pick any verse. So we've got Nitai, you can take 37. And Lilavani can take 39. And Revatikanta, you can take 41. And Blake can take 37. And Avatapi Krishna take 39. And Devanand Prabhu can take 41. So take 10 minutes, look at the verse. And sorry, I'll go back on that. That back up there. Remember your verse. And this is the exercise. Yes. Okay. Look at the principles. Look at the verse. Got 10 minutes, 9:15. We'll hear what you can. We got 10 minutes on this, gentlemen. Take one of the verses. Any of them. Or the one I gave you. I'll put the verses up again. You remember? gentlemen. Let's hear what we came up with. Stop the share. Verse 37. Someone like to read the verse, give us a bit of an explanation, some of the key words, some of the principles.
Haribol.
Yeah.
So the verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world." So regarding this verse, Prabhuji, I actually made bullet points. Can I
Yeah,
read
let's
them?
hear it.
I mean,
Let's hear it.
I also made that a part of my homework, which I surrendered. So can I read them, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started by saying that as Srila Prabhupada explains in this verse, the living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme. It is original, spiritual, pure, and free from material contamination. When the living entity is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation. Sinful actions are not impelled by the Supreme Soul. When the living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. The love of Godhead is transformed into lust as milk is in contact with sour, is transformed into yogurt. When lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion. Illusion continues the material existence. Lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity. It is lust only which keeps the living entity binded and entangled in the material world. Wrath is the manifestation of ignorance. If one is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into for his ever increasing spiritual bliss. The living entities are parts and parcels of this spiritual bliss. By misuse of their partial independence from the service attitude into propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. Therefore, material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned soul to fulfill their lustful propensities, and once they are completely baffled by the prolonged lustful activities, the living entity begins to inquire about their real position, which is the inquiry into the Supreme. If lust is transformed into love for the Supreme or transformed into Krishna consciousness, desiring everything for Krishna, then lust and wrath can be spiritualized. The human form of life is a chance for living entity to escape the
I think we covered. I think we covered everything there. I think your attention to the detail was astonishing. We're awestruck. I think we covered a lot of the points there on 37. Yeah, you got that for us. So the basic principle, like to give us a basic, in your own words, basic principle, Nidai? Or yeah, anyone else on 37? I think, was Dave on 37 too?
I also had 37.
Okay, yeah. So Blake, roll. Let's hear a bit of a summary, Blake.
Yeah, so I just said lust leads to anger, and anger comes when our object of lust is unsatisfied. And then it could even go further. Anger can become illusion, and that is what keeps us imprisoned in the material world, which is why Krishna says lust is our greatest enemy.
Yeah.
We can go up or down depending on the modes we are in. If we can go towards goodness, then we can avoid the anger stage and transform lust into love. And then if you're a really pure soul like Hanuman, you can even use anger for devotional service, like by burning Lanka.
Okay, that's good. Good summary. Most of the points. Yeah, some of the key Sanskrit words we got here, gentlemen. Some of the key Sanskrit words in the verse.
Kama Esha, Krodha Esha.
Kama Esha, Krodha Esha. Yeah, Krodha comes from calm, anger comes from lust. What else? Rajaguna Shamudbhava. Rajaguna, association with the mode of Rajagun, means the rod of passion. And as Blake was explaining, you have to associate with the mode of goodness as alternative. The 39, text 39, gentlemen, what are some of the, like to share with us some of the points you came with on text 39, those who are looking at it, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah,
So
Leela.
lust is like a fire which never ends. In this text 39, it says Maithunagar. The world is a Maithunagar. I just
Shackles of sex.
yes. I just lust covers our gyan, Shuddha Chetanam, the pure.
Where's that in the verse? Leela, where's it say that in the Sanskrit?
Anavrita Jnana Med.
Yeah,
Tena.
Avritam. It covers knowledge. It covers Gyan. Avritam Jnana. Lust covers Gyan. Avritam Jnana.
Lust covers Gyan, and
Yeah.
it is said in the Manu Samhita, lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment.
Baba. Yeah. So where's that in the verse? Where's that in the Sanskrit?
Kamarupena Konteya Dupushparena Lena.
Yeah. So where does it say it's unsatiable? Where is it in the verse? You said that Manu Samhita says it can never be satisfied. So where does it say that in the verse?
Sorry, I don't
Manu,
really.
you quoted Manu Samhita. You kind of
Yes.
quoted Manu Samhita, and it says it can never be satisfied. And my question is, where does it mention that in the verse? Yeah. What's that mean?
Never be satisfied. Dushpurena lenenacha.
Yeah. So you remember Risha Panashat? Remember Risha Panashat? Punam? Remember that? Punam?
Yes,
Yeah,
Prabhu.
remember? Yeah, it's full, complete. So this Dushpuran, this can never be fulfilled, can never be complete. Dushpurena. And the fire, Analena. Dushpurena, Analena. It's unfulfilled and it's like a fire. The more you try, the more you desire. Something else on 39. Who else was on 39? Okay, what about
Yes,
41?
Prabhu. Yeah, according
Yeah.
to the verse,
Atavi, yeah.
I was given 39.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
what do you
the
got?
living entity has pure consciousness, jnanam. That's the Sanskrit word jnana, but it becomes covered, avarita. And the lust is an eternal enemy, nitya vairina, eternal enemy.
That's good. Atavi, thanks for the Sanskrit.
And
Nitya, you got it. Yeah, hit the nail on the head there, bang. What about 41? Like to share with us some points from 41. Those are on 41.
I'll read it real quick. Tasmat Indriyan Yadav Niyamya Bharatar Sabha Pa Manam Prajahihya Yenam Jnana Vigyana Nashanam. So we have the some of the words that jump out are Indriyani, which are the senses, Indriyani. Niyamya is this concept of regulating. So by regulating the senses. And then this pap manam is some sort of euphemism for lust, apparently. So the great symbol of sin, pap manam. I was interested in that word, pap manam.
Hey, Debakinandan Prabhu, yeah, thanks for the detail there. You hit a lot of the key words there in the verse, right? Indriyani Yado, Papmanam, yeah, hit them all. That's good. What about some of the principles? Some principles.
The principle of regulating the senses as a means to avoid having them warped into lust. And presumably they'll be presented to various means of regulating the senses.
Yeah. Yeah, so then we'll say Krishna consciousness, we'll say for us this is simply Krishna consciousness, niyamya. In the second line there, indriyani ado niyamya. Just follow niyam. We do niyam in Krishna consciousness as niyam. Niyam means rules. So niyam, you use the senses, and in this case, yeah, you use the senses according to the karma, prescribed duties. So Kshatriya should fight. Kshatriya should fight. And in this way, you destroy that propensity for lust. You engage the senses in the appropriate way. And in Krishna consciousness, we do it automatically. There was some further comments on 41. Another student was on 41. Like to share with us?
He is not with us, Prabhu.
Okay, so we're completed. We completed. We looked at, we analyzed in this little exercise. We analyzed what Krishna, the principles Krishna mentions, and we discussed them. Oh, and another one on this 41 that begin with the senses. Niyamya, that indriyani ado, niyamya, indriyani ado, that's on 41, indriyani ado, that begin with the senses. You may not be able to control the mind. So begin with the senses. So in other words, just doing it mechanically is also recommended, even if your mind is completely racing all over the place. But if you actually, even if you bow down and if you do those things and if you put on tilak and all these practical things and purify your body and like those things, and even vibrate your tongue with the holy name, even if the mind is still wandering, it's still niyamya, at least the tongue is engaged. Indriyani ado niyamya, at least you do the vibrating with the tongue and you take prasadam, all those things, they're all like with the senses, even if the mind complete. And then the absorption of the mind, that will come by hearing Shastra. Absorption of the mind will become by hearing Shastra. Katyantaschamam nidyam. Katyantaschamam nidyam, you'll see in 9th chapter of Gita. Katyantaschamam nidyam. Hearing about me, discussing about me, Katyantascha, talking about me, Katyantaschamam nidyam. So what does that mean? Talking about, it's not some vague thing, oh, God is this, God is that. No, it's what he says. It's in the Shastra. It's discussing Shastra. The Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad. That's what he said. That's Katyantaschamam nityam. That's discussing me constantly. Tushanti cha ramanti cha. So that way you engage the senses also. So that way the mind, that's also the mind, but the mind becomes, the more you're absorbed in the hearing Shastra, the more mind will become absorbed, as well as the direct sensual activity. We can conclude this evening. Someone like to read for us?
Therefore, this is the panacea of to engage everyone in Krishna consciousness, chanting Hare Krishna. He comes above the highest principle of Brahmanism. This is the greatest gift to the humanity, that even he is in the fallen condition, the most degraded position, he can be raised to the highest position simply by chanting. This is the only remedy.
Yeah, Jai Prabhupada. This, I think, is fundamental ethical statement here about our movement, Jai Prabhupada. Thank you. So we discussed 2nd and 3rd chapter together. It was stimulating for me to go through this section in your
Atul Krishna,
association.
prabhu.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wanna say
Atul
something?
Krishna, Prabhu, could you saying something in regards like a love for Krishna is eternally situated in the heart of the living entity, right? But by hearing and chanting, that becomes awakened. Is that a way that we can overcome lust and turn it back into love of God? Would you be able to comment
Oh yeah.
on that?
Oh
Prabhu?
yeah. Well, that's it. That's it. Sure. That's the of course. Yeah. Hearing and chanting, that's the method. Yeah, that's the method. It is absorb the mind. Hearing and chanting. That's it. And it's Oshad Maya, Nashi Barolage, Harinama Mahamantra, Lao Tumi Mage. Goshundra is from his own lips. Enecha Oshad, I bought the medicine. Maya Nashi Barolage, which destroys illusion. Harinama Mahamantra, the holy name. Lao to me, Mage, you take it. I'm begging, Lao to me, Mage, I'm begging. Goshundra is begging, take the holy name. So yeah, Prabhupada says here the only remedy. So it was very stimulating for me, start discussing these sections of Gita in your association. And I pray that your subsequent studies are enlivening, and we may be together again at a later date. I look forward to that. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.